this.
Ah, that's
Is
better.
it better?
Not now. It was better a moment ago.
Okay, it's loading now. So
okay, it's streaming on YouTube.
You can start.
Okay. Well, welcome you guys. So we have another DiEM25 coordinating collective meeting. We have 4 points in the agenda. I've been asked to moderate the call today and to be stern about the 2-minute limit so that we could actually do this within the time frame. Again, we're going to streamline the meeting. We have 4 points. The first one being the latest crisis in Europe. I think that Yanis proposed to have a little discussion about the latest Franco-German proposal for the current crisis, and we should start with that. And then please, as ever, please raise your little blue hand or make a signal so I can take the turns. Yanis, the floor is yours.
For Luis, Mr. Chairman, or Chairperson, I should say.
I am for now.
If I'm going to make a substantive comment, I need more than 2 minutes. I need
of course
5 minutes.
Of course, I'm talking about the individual.
Complicated story, you know.
It is.
So look. Let me go straight into it. Okay. I don't know how many of you have read the Merkel-Macron proposal. I read it in detail. The press concentrate on the question of how much money there is going to be in it. Is it going to be grants versus loans? But if you read more carefully, it is quite interesting. The first thing I noticed was there is a priority in the text over large industrial projects. The Berlin-Paris axis is clearly looking at ways of making use of that money, not just for the countries that have been affected most terribly by the coronavirus, but primarily by German and French industry. You will find that there is a clause that directs investments to strategic projects, including computer chips and battery cells. And there is an emphasis on so-called global industrial champions. That's Alstom, that's Siemens, that's large companies. This is important because this is supposed to be a fund for the post-COVID-19 recovery of the European Union, but there is such immense targeting in the text, which we should take very seriously. There is also the mention of the standard French government directive that European global champions should be supported through this funding. Now that goes against everything that the Commission has been trying to do in terms of competition policy. So it's really interesting how Berlin and Paris are using this fund or proposal for fund in order to target an industrial policy that is a big business policy. There's no two ways about that. Read the text and you will see. Now, what does this leave for countries that are, in any case, because of the lack of a Eurobond, facing massive austerity over the next few years? And that includes Spain, it includes Italy, it includes Greece. And why are we facing this massive austerity? Because these countries of the South are going to have the larger budget deficits that would linger beyond this year. And then, of course, given the certainty with which the fiscal compact is going to return next year, or at least its spirit will return, it's those countries that will have fiscally to consolidate, to cut down, to impose austerity. So we're going to have centrifugal forces pulling further away our countries. So the question, the counter argument to this has been that, but we are creating a recovery fund of 500 billion to help them from. Well, first, a large part of it, as I said, is going to go to France and Germany. And when it comes to actually calculating how much will Italy benefit from this fund, allow me to suggest to each one of us, but also to the good folk who are watching us and listening. If you're Italian and you ask yourself a question, how much will Italy benefit from that? You have to take the following into consideration. Which part of the 500 billion will go to Italy? From that, you will need to deduct anything that comes in the form of loans, because loans are not a fiscal injection. Anything that is not spent in the first 3 years, because Italy needs help now, next year, the year after that. Anything that is pushed to the late 20s is irrelevant for Italy's recovery. And we need to also deduct Italy's own contribution to the fund, because the fund is going to be funded by loans based on monies that Italy is going to commit over the years to it, not just Italy, but everyone. Okay, so the net benefit, once you take all this into consideration, the fact that a large chunk is going to be spent in Germany and in France, you end up with a tiny, tiny portion, the purpose of which will be to make amends for the austerity that's coming Italy's way, Spain's way, Portugal's way, Greece's way, and so on. So that, it's important to note that. And the emphasis on big business, I think this is something that Jordi, you must very carefully look at. So the great question for us as DiEM25 is this, and that's how I end. The great question is this: do we side with the center-left argument or criticism of Merkel's and Macron's proposal, which more or less says, and the Greens, the German Greens are making the same point, that it's a move in the right direction, but it's not going far enough? That is the center-left Green argument. Or do we reach the conclusion that it is a step in the wrong direction, and therefore, the fact that they're not going fast enough is not such a bad thing, because if you're moving in the wrong direction, you don't want them to move fast enough. It is my considered opinion, and we can have a long discussion about that they are moving in the wrong direction. They are moving towards creating those global giants, which I don't think they will even succeed in doing it, but they will channel a lot of money to the big business that have already been zombified by the injection of central bank money since 2008. Small businesses are going to get nothing. And this package is going to act as a legitimizer of the gross austerity that's going to afflict workers and small business. So in that sense, my recommendation to comrades in DiEM and friends beyond DiEM is that this is a package that must be fought. We must not fall into the trap of applauding it half-heartedly and saying, you did something, that's a good thing, but you should have done more. Of course, this is something that we need to discuss, not just today, but again and again and again. This is an ongoing discussion that we must be having. DiEM25 is the only transnational political movement in Europe that needs to have an opinion and a running commentary, because they have a running commentary. Every day they come up with new ideas, the new propaganda, new ways of pushing the same old cart along a very bumpy road. We need to do the same thing. Sorry for taking too long.
Thanks for that, Yanis. Actually, that package sounds almost as a pyramid scheme, if you ask me. Who would like to take the floor and comment on this? Anyone? Jordi, go ahead.
Thank you, Luis. I agree about two things, but I think there's a third thing that is important. Let me explain. I agree that this deal between Macron and Merkel is focused on large industrial projects, as you say, especially predatory industries. So absolutely agree on that. There's a wrong way, absolutely. Self-employed and small and medium-sized companies is going to see nothing. This is something that is happening around Europe. It's not just the European Union. In Spain, for example, we have supposed to have a left-wing government, and we're having the same problem. Predatory industries are taking all the public money to recover in the way they can recover. We would see that if they leave from subsidies from now on. And self-employed and medium-sized and small-sized industries is not getting anything. One of the proofs of that is that, for example, in the Barcelona City Council, we started a line of subsidies to self-employment, and the website was collapsed in an hour and a half, absolutely collapsed in an hour and a half. So imagine the need that self-employed have at this moment, living this situation with no income at all, with no help from the governments. For example, in Spain, even the loans are from 80,000 euros up. So most of the people cannot have a loan of 80,000 euros. So if they need less, they cannot even have a loan. So absolutely agree with that. Absolutely agree with the second characteristic is that it's regressive. It says that it's gonna go to the countries in the same percentage as they give to the European Union. So obviously it's gonna go to the richer regions of Europe. So it's absolutely regressive. The regions that have less income, and they need more help, is the ones that they're gonna receive less. But I think there's a third thing, that for the first time, it's not given to every country's debt. It comes from the European budget. To the wrong way, I agree. But there's a big change about what happened, and you know much more than I, in Greece some years ago. So in that characteristic is that I'm not saying I am agree with the deal, but I'm saying that we have to keep that. We have to keep that the European has to be a unity in when it comes to helps, subsidies. They have to direct to the right way, which is the regions with less income and self-employed and small size and medium sized companies. But it's right that it has to come from a unique income from the European Union, not from debt of every one of the countries.
Thank you for that, Jordi. So you want to highlight as well the point that it doesn't accumulate into debt. I would like anybody would like to expand on that at all? Yeah, Yanis?
I had a question.
I'm sorry.
My hand. Do you mind if I go on? I have 3 questions, in fact.
Of course you have to, because, you know, Luis, you have to watch the blue hands.
I am.
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead, Sissy. Thanks.
Okay. I've got 3 questions, and as you know, I'm not an expert on economics, but never mind. I think, Yanni, that they also mentioned, apart from the industry business that you so well developed, I think that there is a third kind of category, which is tourism. Okay, as a help for the South. I want your comment on this. Second, they mentioned that these are explicit, Macron did, if I'm not mistaken, that these are not loans, these are subsidies. And third, what about Denmark, Sweden, Holland, and don't remember the 4th country who opposed this? Is it again a setup as it was in the past by the German and Franco sort of alliance, or is it genuine? These are my questions. Thank you.
Very good. I see no little blue hands. Anyone else would like to comment on this? Hello? Simona.
May I?
Go ahead.
I just wanted to add a small thing. This is the same in Italy. Funding has been used to finance the ever dying Alitalia with 3 billions. and it's just money going to the usual suspects, the oligarchy that never miss a crisis, a good crisis, to get some subsidies and some money. So the corrupted oligarchies of southern Italy are our enemy once more, and we should note not only where money comes from, but also what we choose to what use its point.
Thanks for that, Simona. Again, I'm not seeing little blue hands. Can you stack them somehow? Because for some reason they're not showing unless. We have somebody. Anyone? Oh, God. Hello? I'm not seeing the little blue hands. So can anyone stack, please?
Jordi wanted to speak again.
Jordi, go ahead. Thanks, Yanis.
You wanted to speak too, Yanis. I don't know.
Yeah, I'll answer.
Just a small mention. When we talk about large industrial projects, tourism is one of those. I mean, Marina Garcés, which is a Spanish philosopher, talk about the most predatory of legal industries. So this is something that we have. I understand that many countries on the south depend on tourism, but we have to start changing that. I mean, tourism is not going to be able to sustain the same way it used to be. It's going to need so much subsidies. Remember that we don't even tax the gasoline they use for planes or boats. We don't tax it. So it's already subsidized. And from an ecological point of view and even a social point of view, one of the most precarious jobs in Spain are those that come from tourism. So I understand that we have, I mean, it's not easy because it's not something that you can change from one day to the other. But in this situation where tourism went to zero, I think it's the right moment to change this mono industry of some of the countries, especially in Catalonia, and try to initiate what we talk about the Green New Deal for Europe, investing in new industries. I think this is the right moment to create new jobs, more stabilized and more good to the ecology and the social system. Just.
Thanks for that, Jordi. Indeed, tourism for countries like Spain is going to be huge for this. I've got Yanis next. Go ahead, Yanis.
Right. Let me start with Simona first. Simona, what you say is absolutely right. But it's not just Alitalia. We see Lufthansa in Germany. They're doing something that is bordering on the criminal. They have good lawyers, so they will legitimize it. They will legalize it, not legitimize it. They will legalize it, but not legitimize it. The German state is going to put money into Lufthansa, but Lufthansa has made it a condition for accepting the money, that they shouldn't get shares. The state should not get shares in return for capital. Now, of course, it is illegal, according to German law, for the German state to give money to a company without getting equity, without getting shares. So what they've done is they devised a financial instrument. They are using convertible bonds. So the convertible bond is like a loan, which if it's not repaid turns into a share, which is not a share. Why are they using convertible bonds? One can say, come on, we are giving them the money. If they don't get paid back, we'll get equity. We'll get a chunk of the business. Well, the reason why they're doing it is because convertible bonds don't have votes. So in other words, the Lufthansa private shareholders are going to continue to have complete command over the board of directors, okay? Even though they will no longer command the total capital of Lufthansa. So that is, as I said, it's certainly immoral. It's certainly toxic. And I would say it's borderline illegal. And I'm sure that they will do the same thing with the Aegean here in Greece, with Alitalia, and so on and so forth. Now, Sisi, I think that Jordi answered the point about tourism. Greece has the worst dependence on tourism. We have about 30% of our GDP relies on tourism. So we're going to be hit more than anyone this summer. And also, but Jordi is right. This should be a wake-up call that this monoculture must change. But that you need an industrial plan for that. You need to plan a transformation of the economy so that you don't, you're no longer the waiters of Europe, the waiters and the cooks and the, the hoteliers of Europe. But for that, you need investment funding. And Greece is completely bankrupt, has been so for 10, 12 years now, right? So let's not forget that. And none of the money from that fund is going to go into this kind of thing. It will go into the 5-star hotels, into building more, not less, not transitioning, but, consolidating the existing monoculture. Sisi, you asked the question about grants, loans. The one good aspect of the Merkel-Macron announcement was that it will all be grants and not loans. However, comrades, this is not a decision. This is a proposal. This will have to go to the European Union Council. And I come to your question about what is the position of Austria, of Sweden, of Holland, of Finland, and the Eastern European countries, the cheerleaders of the, of the surplus.
Denmark, not Finland yet, Denmark.
Finland is definitely going to be on the side of Holland. Finland always is. And you've got to remember that, well, this is my assessment. My assessment is that Merkel agreed with Macron on this, that it should be grants, not loans, because at the same time, she's going to agree in the European Union summit. Well, when the Dutch Prime Minister says, Mr. Rutte, no way, there will have to be loans, or a substantial amount must be loans, Merkel will say, well, what can I do? We need to find the middle road. So effectively, she's giving a small victory to Macron in the context of a private agreement between them on what to propose, and then she's going to take it back. Maybe, I hope she doesn't, but this is what she's always done in the past with bilateral proposals between Berlin and Paris. Now, I'm coming to your central point, Jordi. Well, I don't agree with you that this is the first time that monies from Brussels do not count as part of national debt. Structural funds. This is what we have here is an extension of the structural funds. The structural funding that goes to Poland, to Spain, and so on, is not added to the national debt. So this is not new. What they have effectively agreed to propose, it's not an agreement, it's a proposal, is to increase the amount of structural funding. So this is not an innovation. It's not an innovation. And there will be some transfers. You were quite right when you said that, what's the point of saying that, we will all contribute and then take some back what we have contributed? You might as well not contribute. You might as well give it to yourself, right? Now, the argument from the financial perspective is that because the European Commission has better credit worthiness, they will be able to lever it up a little bit more. So there will be a lot more money that comes back, or a little bit more money that comes back. So that's not an incorrect argument. But in terms of restoring balance within the European Union, there will be none of that. There will be some, because I predict that in the European Union Council, they will say that a certain percentage of that money will go to the countries that have been most afflicted, Italy, for instance, right? But then, or Greece. But that will be a small amount, and I have no doubt it will go to multinational companies in those countries. So in Greece, for instance, I already see the signs here, I can smell them. You know who's going to get it? Fraport. Fraport is a German company that owns all the Greek airports. So, what extra goes to Greece will go to companies like Fraport. Or, Greek Telecom, which is Deutsche Telekom. they will get it. And so they will have a higher profitability from exploiting the Greek airports that they took as part of the third memorandum of understanding. So DiEM's question, the question for DiEMers is this: do we want to give any kind of kudos, any kind of tick, even if it is ameliorated by criticism? I think not. I think all they're doing, this is typical European Union since 2010. They are trying to legitimize the illegitimate. They are trying to cover up for the fact that they killed, they murdered the Eurobond. They are trying to cover for the fact that they spoke about a common unemployment insurance system, but there is no such thing, because sure, it's not a common unemployment insurance system. What happens is, yes, more money will go to the unemployed from Brussels in Spain or in Greece. If there is more unemployment, the increase in unemployment is greater in Spain and Greece than in Holland and in Germany. But that is loans. This is money that the Spanish state, the Greek state, will have to return as unemployment is falling. So my proposal, comrades, is we do not give them any kind of solace, any kind of support for this attempt to cover up for the fact that they are not doing what they should be doing, and they're doing the wrong things instead.
Thanks for that, Yanis. Unless there's anybody else who wishes to add anything to this conversation, make a proposal about putting forward this question to our membership and explain a proposal and a suggestion to them and move with it. Anybody would like to add? I see no blue hands. Very good. So we'll move on then to open this conversation to the membership with a suggestion as to what has been discussed today. And who would like to open the next point in the agenda, which is an update on the Progressive International, which is quite an important thing for us right now. Anybody?
Pavel, I think Pavel, I have been traveling, as you know, so I've been a bit out of touch. Tomorrow we have a meeting, but I think Pavel can do it the best, right?
Okay. Pavel, you're up for it.
Happy to, absolutely, yeah. So this is almost the end of our second week since launch. We had an incredible response with, even if you followed my Twitter, quite favorable reviews from the very right-wing press, which at least recognizes the immense power that we're building. We've had some critical coverage, but also constructively critical coverage from the left. So it's been an immensely positive couple of weeks. And we're also attracting a ton of movements from all around the world. We've had a massive youth movement from Pakistan come on board earlier this week, as well as all kinds of worker groups from all around the world. And now the next step and the critical challenge is to find a way to capture that momentum and to convert it into political programming that's transnational in nature, that connects the dots between different movements and different struggles, and starts to build collective power across borders. And the stakes here are incredibly high. Last Friday, the editor-in-chief of one of our partner publications in Egypt was arrested. A few weeks ago, one of our members said, the Pakistani youth movement, that the military shot live rounds at them during a protest in Pakistan. So these are people who are fighting real power, who are putting their lives at risk to advance their causes. And some of them also take a massive risk in affiliating with others through the Progressive International. So being mindful of those politics, being mindful of their struggles, and finding ways programmatically to connect them and to start really taking on the establishment will be the major challenge for the coming months and our key focus. I'm happy to take questions, but I think in terms of an update since last week, that should do.
Right, thank you very much. Would anybody like to add, and also bearing in mind, what can we do to support at this point with what you have said? I've got Yanis.
Two things. First, I've had a number of Zoom meetings with various representatives that were very keen to join the Progressive International. One in particular was very interesting. David Adler was part of it, comes from Argentina. Hugely important movements in Argentina go together, and they wanted to talk to us, and they wanted to hear from us first. They were not completely uncritical, and I can tell you that after an hour and a half of speaking with them, they all want to join. So that conversation went very well. So we need to at the same time be mindful of the great work that needs to be done, and slightly satisfied that what we already have done is having an effect. In the chat, I give you an example of what I call ill-meaning criticism from the left. Criticism in bad faith, but criticism that we should not dismiss and that we should take very seriously into consideration for two reasons. Firstly, because there have been moments in the past when, as DiEM, or even as the Progressive International, that includes statements coming out of Bernie Sanders, myself, and others, we were not as clear as we should be about important issues. And we allowed ourselves to be open to left-wing criticism that is legitimate, even though it was in bad faith. And there've also been certain, our position is a very complicated position as DMers. So at the same time, we can propose Keynesian solutions without being Keynesian. That can be very confusing for you. We say, so you're Keynesian, right? No. We use some tools from the Keynesian toolbox when we think that it is in the interests of the many. But we need to explain that. And we need to explain why, for instance, when we're talking about the new Bretton Woods, we're not celebrating the totalitarianism that was supported under the Bretton Woods by the United States. So I'm cutting a long story short. I'm posting this as an example of the kind of left-wing criticism that, even though it's pretty nasty, and you can tell that the person who wrote it wanted to do damage and didn't, and was very loose with the facts. Nevertheless, we need to treat them with respect and answer respectfully.
Thanks, Yanis. Point taken, right, Pavel? We'll take a look at the link that Yanis posted and reflect on it. Does anybody else want to ask any questions to Pavel or comment on the Progressive International at this time? I've got Jordi. Go ahead.
Yes, it's just an observation for some things I've seen in Spain, but I guess it happens to other countries. I think that I don't know if it was planned or not, but one of the good things of the International Progressive is that is making different parties that might be quarreling between them within a country, going upwards and looking at the situation, because both of them want to be in International Progressive. So I think one of the tools that it might help is that leave internal discussions within countries that usually they don't have a political origin, but more a personal origin, on the side, and maybe we can help some progressive forces get together to fight together, which is really needed at this moment.
Thanks for that.
Comment on that really quickly. So I think, one of the things I've observed in the first couple of weeks is that we've hit something of a utopian bone in people, where, like moths to the fire, we have people from across the left spectrum coming to us. We have all kinds of utopian movements that haven't really had much of a say in the past 20 or 30 years, all of a sudden flocking to us and encouraging us to look at their visions of, future societies and new urban planning models and all of these things. And that's been a really beautiful thing to see, to catalyze for this project. But equally, we can see, and I think Spain is an interesting case, how there are some forces that are quite keen to use the Progressive International to advance their own political agendas and gain legitimacy through association with us. So that will be a minefield that we have to be very careful about navigating.
Thanks, Paolo. That's a very good, very interesting, good point. Anybody else would like to comment on this subject? Nobody? I see no blue hands. Okay. So we move on to our third point in the agenda, which is a document Simona has circulated for the past week and a half. It's a comprehensive proposal. I think that we all have been able to read it, correct? So Simona, perhaps you can give us a very brief intro again to remind us all and have a discussion about it and initiate it. Could you?
Yes, the document was meant to give an answer to the issues raised by Mame's and Dani's resignation and the crisis that was triggered by this event. So I tried to focus, to point out the root causes of this crisis, and I think Mame pointed out an issue with our internal decision making and an imbalance of power internal to the CC, and an ethical issue about macho behaviors inside our group. This triggered many protests and many questions to us. And in my opinion, all those are symptoms of a root cause that is a broken trust between the CC and the membership, and members feeling disempowered. So I think the whole thing is an issue concerning mutual trust between us and the member, and trust is a two-side walk, and a feeling of deep frustration and disempowerment expressed by members. So my proposal is to tackle those two issues. How to enable members to speak in the name of DiEM, to empower members, and to rebuild mutual trust between us and the membership, and how to tackle the ethical and behavioral issues raised about macho behaviors inside the CC, and about conflicts inside the CC. Now, talking about conflicts, let's be honest, all of our groups have internal conflicts, and we have many people denouncing bad diversity management and macho behaviors. It is not the fault of anybody. It is dysfunctional group dynamics, and we should address them as such, not looking for a guilty or somebody on whom to put the blame. So I go directly to my proposals to tackle with it, that are to enable members to speak in the name of DiEM. Sorry, Moniz? Oh. What's happening? Somebody's speaking?
No, you're fine. You're not breaking.
Okay, sorry. So we need members to feel enabled to speak in the name of DiEM, but for this we need to involve them and to tackle the insufficient knowing of our goals and our structure. This emerged in many documents. It is emerged in some of the amendments suggested for our implementation plan that emerged from bad knowledge of the back issues. So on this, I suggest to copy what Extinction Rebellion does. That is a care of onboarding members, explaining them what are we doing, why, and how, and the structure of the movement, and launch specific campaigns to spread our ideas, repeating and hammering the same concepts. And then my second proposal is to have a general assembly, maybe in December, but to prepare it to be different from a front lesson with people that claps and says, "Oh, Yanis, how good you are." Our scope is to free Yanis from this role of they tell us what do we think. We must become able to think as DiEMers without asking him. And third, take complaints seriously before they become resignations, and take resignation seriously. Let's talk with people who resigns and treat them as alarm bell that we should listen to. As for dysfunctional groups and ethical issues, we need to become feminist. We need a feminist protocol for our internal functioning. And we need to understand that being feminist is being aware of the submission patterns that are enshrined in our culture, and be aware of them and fight them inside ourselves. So I agree with the proposal that Yanis made on the forum to set processes inside our groups to have all voices listened and compelled, and people compelled to speak, because if you don't compel people to speak, it shall be always the usual suspects who do. And sorry. And take care of our groups and of our groups dynamics. We have a code of conduct that is too sanctionist. We have a conflict mediation system that is too individual. We need something for groups, and I would ask members to help us in preparing a solution for dysfunctional dysfunctional internal groups. Oh, okay. Sorry, I've been long, but that's all.
That's fine. It's an important issue, and I think that we've all been working very hard towards improving our communications and all the series of proposals that we've been discussing. So, would anybody like to comment on Simona's proposal at this point? I don't see any blue hands, so please go ahead. Anyone? Nobody would like to take the floor? Should we? Anybody? Jordi?
Jordi.
Hi. No, I'm just saying
Ivan.
that.
You're not watching, Luis, the blue hands.
I am watching it. It just came out just now. Yeah,
too late. Jordi and Ivana.
No, just briefly. I mean, I think that most of the things that Simona said make much sense to me, especially the feminist part. I think we have to womanize the organization. I think this is very useful. It doesn't only mean to have so many women in so many charges. It also means a kind of language, a different language. So I think we have to work on that, because it's complex. I think it's not only that you want to do that. I think I have no doubt that all of us want to do that, but it's also that we have a machist background, a macho background from so many centuries, right? So I think, at least for me, it's very useful to have some common rules, some common language, and like a council watching me, you know. So it's make it easier for everyone. So I think this is one of the main things that we can improve.
Thanks, Jordi. Ivana.
Yes, thank you. Absolutely, we always need to improve and to take into account what members are saying. And I think that since Mame and Dani left, we've been discussing this a lot, and we already tried to improve our communication, and we are having these regular CCNC calls, balcony calls. We are improving our website in terms of better organization. We are launching transparency page. That is something that was addressed in these issues, so to say. So I think that we are going into right direction. Also, task forces for feminism, diversity, and disability are being formed. So that's something that to help also. And yes, whatever comes along, we will try to improve as we move along. But it's important to move forward.
Thanks. I've got Cici and then Rosanna. For those of you who still have your hands up, please take that down, otherwise I'll get confused. So Cici, please go ahead. Thanks.
Thanks. In addition to what Ivana has said, and referring back to Simona's text, which I read very carefully, I agree very much with Simona's point about the issue of resignations, that we should take them more seriously. And by this, I mean not only in terms of the structural processes and the OPs, but in terms of a psychological and human effort to come to touch with people who feel, who have resigned, taking them off their, possibly their decisions in the interest of keeping all people, valuable people, on board. Second point, about womanizing the movement, and of course I agree with Jordi. I simply want to let you know that, for example, our manifesto, it's in the process, it's basically finished, of adapting the language and making it more friendly to diversity and women, and not only women, to those groups that would feel much more comfortable finding their presence there on the linguistic basis, which is very, very important. Thank you.
Thanks for that, Cici. I've got Rosanna and then Judith. There's a problem with your mic, Rosanna. Okay, perhaps we'll jump into Judith and then, okay. Go ahead, Judith.
I wanted to wholeheartedly agree with the point on onboarding. I think that we are losing way too many people who sign up, and then the next letter they get refers to a campaign which has been ongoing since 3 months or something, and they don't know what's going on. And I have been this has been a particular concern of mine after I've read a lot of people emailing to the help desk with this kind of complaint. And I went to Greece in winter, before this crisis in order to help Meta with its onboarding, and we found a completely new set of instructions both by email and through the website to help Meta members get started. And now we're in the process of having something similar for DiEM members as well. And we started to discuss that last Monday at the office meeting. So I think it would be great if you could come to next Monday's office meeting and weigh in on this process of ensuring that our members know more about what they're getting into and our positions, our policies, but also how they can contribute in various ways. There's a lot of work to be done on that.
Thanks, Judith. Rosanna, do we have you back? Is your sound okay? Great.
Yeah, I think so. Yes, I also like the proposed or the mentioned ideas of Simona. I wanted to add that it, for working on the lack of trust of members against the CC, I think it's quite urgent that we as the CC have our own rules of procedure, like written down. For example, the German NC has a very nicely version, and it just helps to be more transparent to our members. For example, in our decision-making process about the amendments last week, some members then they do you hear me?
Teleconference, πες μου λίγο γρήγορα.
So, sorry.
Sorry.
Okay, sorry, I was confused. Like last week, we saw that in this amendment voting procedure, not all amendments were voted on, and also not for all votings the votes were counted and so on. So I think we should like implement the rules of procedure for ourselves, and also we should in general like stick to the OPs more strictly, but also give the members like the chance of having a transparent procedure of like making their voice heard regarding the organizing principles and maybe hand in ideas, because right now only the CC can hand in all member votes. I mean, maybe that will change in the future, but yes, that's just the things I wanted to mention again.
Thanks, Rosanna. Just before I hand the floor over to Sresko, two things. We did count votes during the last CC meeting. Yanis was chairing it, I believe. And we'll follow up with the new initiative that we are doing in terms of making it easier for all member votes to be initiated from the membership. Sresko and then Yanis.
Yeah, sorry, just quickly from me, you know that I'm a bit absent today because of personal reasons, travels, and in post-coronavirus situation and so on. So just quickly, and we will continue the conversation. I also agree with many points that Simona made, and thanks a lot for making the comprehensive plan. I think actually in the last month, we moved forwards, definitely, both as the coordinating collective and as DiEM25. I think the whole situation during the 2 months, both with the resignations, but also generally speaking, was pretty difficult. It is also due to the pandemic, quarantine, self-isolation, and so on, which I think now is getting at least a bit easier for many of us and our members, although it will get much worse in the coming months. So I completely agree that it's crucial to think in the directions how to empower our members, but also how they can empower us, you know, to have this kind of dialectical relationship. But stop on this, I just wanted to say actually one thing. I not only me, but also several other people here noticed that some people mentioned womanizing DiEM25. I'm completely against it. Because I think it's a language issue, because when you say womanizing, it has a bad connotation. It means actually the opposite of what you, Jordi, and Sisi meant when you said it. So I would just suggest, as a comradely, friendly suggestion, not to use this term anymore. Maybe use feminizing it, which is also a bit bad. I think it's also not the right connotation, but womanizing is definitely the opposite of what we want to do in the end. Yeah, so just this comment from me. On the rest, I will continue after the CC meeting when we go more concrete.
Absolutely, indeed, Fresco. Yanis, please.
There we are. I now have unmuted myself. To begin with, I want to thank Simona for the proposal. I welcome it in its entirety. It's a very good step in a direction that we have started taking for a year now. But let me go straight to the question about resignations, because we've been having questions in the forum. They've been raised by a number of people. Let me be clear on the resignations. We've had many resignations since 2016. Some I seriously welcome. We must remember that resignations are political statements, unless they are for medical or strictly private, non-political reasons. Some resignations strengthened us, others weakened us. Since the very beginning of this movement, we took each one of them very, very seriously. Allow me, to those who continue to insist that we should respond directly to members who resign, be careful, because there is a question of justice. Those who are not in the CC don't have all the information. Unfortunately, because the CC meetings were not live streamed, now everybody has information. So now nobody can talk about transparency. Rosanna mentioned, you said we should have more transparency. We can't have more transparency than what we're doing now. We are on YouTube. We are live streaming everything that we do and say. I don't know any other movement that does that. And I think somebody has to acknowledge this and move beyond criticisms that are no longer pertinent. But even before that, there were things that we know that happened on the CC that not everybody knows. And if we were to respond to a resignation letter that has been posted, let's say in the forum, then we might, have to reveal aspects of people's behavior that then those who have resigned should have the right to respond to. That's what justice demands. But do we really want to go down that road? So what is important is that the CC responds to important issues regarding internal democracy and important issues regarding the way in which we are functioning at all levels. Now, comrades, we have spent a year now looking deeply into our internal processes. We started the process well before Prague. We went to Prague. And after that, we have a long period during which the CC is coming up with proposals. There are counter proposals. There's a consultation process that is happening now. In our next meeting, next Thursday, we will have put on, we will have agreed finally as a CC on which proposals go to the members, and sometimes counter proposals, not just our proposals. Members, if they want to put more options on the table, they can do it. All they have to do is gather 300 signatures to do it. The organizing principles are being amended in a manner that gives maximum capacity to every member to start the process of changing the organizing principles. At the end of this year that we are coming to, DiEM25 has emerged as the most democratic and member empowering movement that I personally know. If anybody of you knows a movement that is more member empowering than ours, just tell me. But you don't even need to agree with that, or members don't have to agree with that. We are putting into the organizing principles process by which members can change anything independently of the CC. I think that says it all. Now, Rosanna, I'm sorry, but I'm going to reject fully and with complete knowledge of the veracity of what I'm saying, your statement that the amendments were not voted for. I made sure that everybody raised their hands. Poor Renata did not have a picture, if you remember, and so she had to say yes or no. Everybody's vote was registered regarding every amendment. So I will ask you to withdraw that statement. We have the minutes, we have the recording. There's no justification in making that point unless you want to breed lack of trust within the movement. And I'm sure you don't want to do that. In any case, comrades, the CC is elected. We have a mandate as the only elected body in throughout the DiEM25 across Europe to coordinate the movement. And we are here to be judged by our members. An election is coming soon. Half of us are going to be judged accordingly by our members. This is the wild beauty of internal democracy. There are issues that we need to, that I feel personally, and I'm sure most of you do, and they're all in there in Simona's proposal, excellent proposal. We need a better delineation of what ex officios do, of how they are selected, the term of office. We need to look a little bit more into this, even though anyone who has experienced the workings of the CC would know that our ex officios are incredibly hardworking people. They are committed DMers. They are people who understand DiEM, who have spent years working as volunteers before they became ex officios. But nevertheless, we need to look at that again, and we will. I have no doubt we will. Regarding a protocol for these meetings, I was the one who proposed, remember, that before a man speaks, a woman must have spoken first, and this is not putting pressure on women. My experience in a very patriarchal country, Greece, is that women in villages around Greece, in public meetings, old ladies that would never dare raise their hands to speak, were liberated by that rule, because we were very clear. If a woman doesn't speak next, we all go home. There will be no more meeting. And then they spoke and they were liberated and they said very sensible things, unlike most men. Feminism is not a woman issue in the same way racism is not a black issue. It's feminism as well as anti-racism, as well as all sorts of politics, the purpose of which is to fight discrimination, is a human issue. And we must all beware of the power structures that we have a tendency to replicate, especially as men. So unless we men are become part of a living, breathing feminist process, we are failures as DMers. So I like the ideas in Simona's proposal. I go wholeheartedly for them. I think that our next assembly, because Simona mentions the next assembly, must be sometime in November or December to discuss DiEM25 2.0, to discuss post-capitalism, the post-COVID-19 world, our relationship with the Progressive International, what we want to achieve through the Progressive International. And we need to have a marker, because in the first instance, in 2016, we had May 2019, the European Parliament election, as a mental marker. We need to create a new one. We will have to do this together. But Simona is completely right, absolutely right, Simona, when you say that this assembly should not be one where we all meet in a very nice amphitheater and the same old faces get up and lecture the rest. To prevent that from happening, we need to ensure that this is a process that culminates to an assembly, that local groups, DSCs, whatever, discuss the issues that will be discussed in the assembly, and they come up with collective views that then percolate through the movement and help everyone. Because Simona is again right when she said that the task ahead should be that every DMer is a spokesperson. Every DMer has the capacity to analyze what is happening and to go out there and speak on behalf of the movement. That is the objective. The objective is not to have some male faces, usually me or some others, getting up and constantly representing the movement and giving the line, the party line, or the movement line. But for that, we need to have members that actually discuss post-capitalism amongst themselves, that discuss, what we were discussing at the beginning of our meeting today. Yeah, what are we doing to? What is our position on Macron and Merkel's proposal? What is our position about, universal basic incomes, but universal basic dividends, public health systems? What is our proposal about, international trade? What is our proposal about, the green transition? Do we want a CO2 tax that is universal across the world? Do we want it to be at different levels in different countries? Every DMer should have a view on those things. And every DMer, therefore, should be able to be a spokesperson for DiEM on the basis of this analysis. But the next assembly must be on politics. It must be on the politics of DiEM25, but not top-down, not that we gather somewhere, for the tablets to come down from the mountain, but the opposite, for the tablets to be written at local level and then slightly to emerge to the summit, of the assembly, where we will have a discussion. We shouldn't aim to have a document in that assembly. It should be the culmination of a discussion. And from then we start a process that again can take 3, 4, 5, 6 months, like after Prague, to reach the final texts and the final policies. And I have no doubt that through this process, we are going to create, firstly, harmony and comradely processes using the much improved organizing principles, and at the same time mold spokespersons for the movement. So I second Simona's proposal.
Thank you, Yanis. I've got Simona and then Sisi. Remember, guys, we have some 10 minutes as per our agenda. Let's see if we can make it on time. Go ahead, Simona, please.
First of all, clarification about amendments and votes. It was me who made the minutes, and my fault. I missed the votes were Rosanna and sometimes Rosanna and me, and sometimes others were against the decision. My fault. I didn't mark it in the minutes. I expected people to correct it actually. So sorry for it. And second thing, shall I share my proposal and concrete proposals that end it with membership after this meeting? Am I entrusted by you to do this? Maybe we want to make some amendments to the text before sending it.
Any suggestions about this? Shaping up the proposal and then sharing it?
Just a clarification question, Simona. Are you saying that, are you talking about the text that will go to the members?
Yes, the text that I sent to the CC and the proposal. But so maybe we should amend it before sending.
Okay, my suggestion is that we should have a round during which people bring send some amendments, and then by email we can all agree to what the final text is and send it.
All right, agreed. So we're going to circulate the Simona's proposal, add contributions, and then share with the membership. I've got Sisi next.
Sorry, it's okay. I mean, I changed my mind. I won't speak. Thank you.
All right. Unless we have anybody else, we have one more point in the agenda. Anybody else would like to make a last comment on this? No. Okay. So during our last CC meeting, we tasked Simona and Judith to give us an update this week on the progressive agenda for Europe. Who would like to chime in? Judith, Simona? Anyone?
Actually, I was hoping that Simona could give us an update, but I added it to the minutes, so I wasn't sure what I should write. My concern is that we've received messages from members asking us who will be their contact person in the CC. And in order to answer these questions, we should discuss who will be the new contact persons, given that some people left.
Simona, would you like to?
But not just about progressive agenda, also about other tasks people were charged of. I think we should reassess all of our activities, not only progressive agenda, about people in charge. As for progressive agenda, actually, it was me and Mame. It was Mame with my help, who was in charge as a point person for the whole thing, and then it was there were no pillars that had Mame or Dani as a point person inside the CC, if I'm not mistaken. I'm checking it, but we have some pillars that still have all the CC point persons, like ecological transition still has Paola Pietrandrea, and a European Constitution has Lorenzo Marsili. So I suggest to discuss the whole thing more deeply, also discussing the state of art of a progressive agenda and how do we want to push it forward. Because have you seen the state of art assessment I sent you yesterday night?
No.
No. Okay. Because we had discussed it with Judith and Eric a couple of months ago. We had questions about like post-capitalism absorbs all pillars about labor, ecological transition, and the European New Deal. So it's complex, and I think we should take some more time to discuss it. Honestly, I missed in last meeting the decision to discuss it today, and I discovered it yesterday afternoon, and so I'm not prepared. I didn't study.
Thanks for that, Simona. Indeed, I've got Cici and then Yanis, but perhaps this, as you say, is a little bit more room for us to discuss and allocate roles and replacement and all that. So perhaps that's in order. So then Cici and then Yanis, please go ahead.
Yes, I read Simona's document, and there are all, as she has already mentioned in written, there are certain gaps. For example, she's right when she says that basically, this is my idea too, that post-capitalism has absorbed almost all other pillars like ecological transition, labor, European New Deal, and so on and so forth. So this is something that we have to face. And second is the labor relationships pillar that was undertaken by Jacques Terroir, if I'm not mistaken. Correct, Simona? Jacques. Okay. And Nicolas Dessous, perhaps which is hasn't functioned for various subjective reasons, might also become part of the post-capitalism pillar because it concentrates on precarity and stuff like that. So Simona's text has certain, I mean, pointed out to us that there are certain things that we have to reconsider in light of our basic strategy, which is post-capitalism. Thank you.
Thanks, Sisi. Yanis.
Look, I don't think we're ready at this point to make a decision on assignment of different roles. What would be good is if somebody from the office sent us, a list of all the chores that need to be done, including pillars, and then each one of us can put a proposal or volunteer or suggest others. It doesn't always have to be a CC member on each one of them. So, for instance, Paula used to be a member of the CC. If she wants to continue doing it, then I would be quite happy, or some other member, as long as we play our coordinating role well. And let's just, once we have some time to think about it, I think we can make a quick decision next week if we put it on the agenda. One last thing, if I may say. This is completely off the record, even though we're on YouTube and everybody's watching. That's full transparency for you. So don't tell anyone, people on YouTube, right? This is between us. We are about to make a decision at Mera25, the electoral wing in Greece, regarding something that I think, well, I'm very excited about, because courtesy of having entered parliament in Greece, DiEM has an electoral wing that is in parliament, and we get some money from the Greek state by law to set up an institute. We are at a very advanced stage of coming up with a very specific proposal. Mera25 is the electoral wing of DiEM25, so an institute set up by Mera25 is an institute of DiEM25. And we are putting it in the charter, in the statutes of that institute. I'm working with a lawyer now. This very evening, after this, I have another 2-hour teleconference with our lawyer to make sure that it's explicitly stated that the institute will belong to DiEM25. There will be members of DiEM25 in the board, the board of directors officially, and we can use it as DiEM's think tank. And I would like to propose that it's dedicated to post-capitalist studies and research and civilization and culture. But that's early days yet. I will have more to report next Thursday, before the Friday, when we will be putting this forward to the board of the electoral wing of Mera25 for final approval before we kickstart it. But it will be something that happens quickly.
Well, thank you very much for the sneak preview. I'm sure our viewers, members, and all will keep the secret.
Yeah.
It's very exciting. Anyway, concrete steps on regards the previous topic is we're gonna come up with a state of play, mapping of the current situation, all of our pillars, and then have some suggestions, proposals for people, not only inside the CC, but other members who are actually very active, who have been very active for months and years to take those roles and help us push forward. I've got Simona and then Sisi. And then we have just a couple of minutes left to make it the 1.5 hour mark. So let's go. Simona, and then Sisi.
Well, I wanted to clarify, we do have a state of play. I sent you yesterday, but I don't think this is the moment to go through this document. The refugees and migration group is working very hard. The European Constitution has been taken care of by Rosemary and is working. And what else? And the Labour is working on the post-capitalism pillar as agreed in Prague. The others we can discuss next week, but there is a state of play, and groups are already working, many of them.
Right, so let's just complement that with what's missing and make some concrete proposals so that we can move forward, right? Then Cici, and then we should be off. Go ahead, Cici.
No, just to express my happiness at the news that Yanis just told us about this institute. When I was in Syriza, I was the vice president of Nikos Koulatsa's Institute of Political Studies and so forth. And what Yanis said for me is important, namely that this institute will be focused on post-capitalism, because after, from my 10-year or 15-year, I don't remember how long I was a vice president of Nikos Koulatsa's experience, trying to cover all aspects and all needs and all intellectual demands drove us nowhere. The focus on post-capitalism is most important because it produces work. Whereas what we did, and we did it in the best possible manner, as I said, I worked really hard for that, was diluted and dispersed. So at the end of this of this story, other people have taken up the project after I left Syriza, was that we were left basically with nothing, because we would sort of simply answer demands for various sort of programs and studies having to do with almost everything. So we were left with no positions. Okay, this is the only thing I want to say.
Thanks, Cici. Again, please, everybody, keep the secret for a bit. And unless there's anybody else who wishes to add anything, we're done. All good?
Well,
it's been great, guys. Talk next week again.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye, everyone.
Carpe diem.
Thank you. Carpe diem.